Hi everyone, this is Neill Thew, and what we wanted to do was just give you a short little video which gives you all the key information about doing the PG Cert so that you know what you're letting yourself in for. Nothing worse than finding yourself in a situation and thinking, oh, I didn't realise this was the deal. So hopefully in this video we've answered all the main questions that we normally get asked. Please watch it, and if there's anything else you still want to ask that we didn't cover, or there's anything that you're not certain about, then by all means please do get in touch with us, and we'll be able to help you with your queries. So, at the most basic level, what is the PG Cert? Well, it's a postgraduate certificate in learning and teaching, and it's the program we've developed both in-house to support BIM tutors in their development to be like really great teachers, and it's also a program that we're now increasingly offering to graduate students. It's different with graduate students. They take it over a year in a very intense way. If you're a member of BIM staff, you're going to take it over 2 years in a way which is much more integrated with your work at BIM. And all of these slides, everything I say on these slides, is referring specifically to the staff version of the PG cert and not the graduate student version. Their deal is different. So, the course is validated by the University of Sussex, and it's the same course offered at all the different BIM colleges. You have the same team of tutors who kind of travel around to all the different colleges, so it's exactly the same for everybody. The course is really kind of three different kinds of qualification all rolled into one, which I think is good. So at the first level, obviously it's an academic qualification, right? You'll probably be aware of this from your undergraduate teaching, but there are different. First of all, there are different levels of education, right? So for a standard undergraduate degree, the first year, or if you're in BIM Dublin, the first and second years are at level 4. A levels or school leaving is level 3. So the first year of university is level 4. The second year, which is year 3 in Dublin, is level 5, and the final year is level 6. So when students graduate, they've got a number of credits for level 4, level 5, level 6. This is a master's qualification, so we've gone up to the next level, level 7. And that does matter because there's a thing in the UK called, and you can Google it and have a look if you're interested, the Framework for Higher Education Qualifications. And this framework sets out what sort of level of difficulty universities need to be able to demonstrate at each different level of education. And one of the things that's very relevant for level 7 education, which is master's education, is that there's an expectation written into the FHEQ, the Framework for Higher Education Qualifications, that students are required to be actually quite independent and quite autonomous. So while we give you loads of support, and to be honest, we give you a lot more support than any other master's program I know, right? So I'm very proud of the support we give you. You do need to be prepared for the fact that you are going to have to work independently as well as when you're being supported. And I think it's important to say that absolutely up front. The second kind of qualification is that this is obviously a teaching qualification. So it's a teaching qualification for further education, FE, and higher education, HE. That's what it's designed for specifically. However, you can also get a sort of a top up to this qualification, which is called QTLS, and it literally takes about a day because you just give them a portfolio of evidence, which would then also, if you're interested, qualify you to teach in schools. So whilst the focus throughout the course is FE and HE, it does give you a route into getting a certification to teach in schools as well. It's also worth saying that the course comes with both UK academic credit and also European academic credit, and I've had people graduate from this course who are now teaching literally all over the world in Asia, in Australia, in the States, in Europe, and in European countries which are EU nations and countries which are not EU nations. And up until now, the qualification has always been accepted wherever anyone's wound up teaching. So I think that's really, really good. The third kind of qualification, and this is new, so if you talk to people currently on the PG Cert, they won't be aware of this because this is just developing right now, is that we're going to get the PG Cert validated by the Higher Education Academy, and so it's going to then lead to a professional qualification as well, which will either be a fellowship or an associate fellowship of the Higher Education Academy, and I think that's a really nice bonus to have. So that's what the PG Cert is. In terms of who will be teaching you, well, I'm the course leader. I'm based in Brighton. Jerry Lewis is the deputy course leader, also based in Brighton, and the third member of our core team is Chris Jones, who's the academic administrator for the course. Now, there's Chris's email, very simply chrisjones@bim.co.uk. If you've got any queries or anything you want to ask, actually at any point in the PG Cert, please send everything to Chris in the first instance, and he either answers it or he sends it out to myself or Jerry according to what's needed. So if you make Chris your main point of contact, that works really, really well. And you'll also be taught by a truly fantastic in-house team that we've got of BIM PGCert tutors who go around the different colleges. There's 7 of us now, and I work really closely with all of them. You've got great tutors, and the really good thing is they're all BIM insiders, so they really understand what it's like teaching at BIM, so that you never get an outsider coming in and sort of bloviating on about, oh, you should teach like this, that, and the other, and talking about stuff that really wouldn't work for us in our context or really wouldn't be relevant. So I think that's really good. Now, in terms of your commitment to the course, should you decide to do it, first thing you need to know is that the course lasts for 2 calendar years. So you begin either at the end of December or beginning of January, you then work through all of that year and then all of the following year. Each year you need to attend, in terms of your face-to-face teaching, 4 2-day intensives each year, and I'm going to explain a little bit more about each of these elements in a minute. But each day there are 4 very intense sessions where we meet together for 2 days, and you would just do that in your college with your own group, in your year, in your college. During term time, there's a task every week where you have to write something on the blog. Again, each group has its own separate blog. You're not sharing with anyone outside your own cohort. And I think realistically, most people would say that you probably need to allow 2 to 3 hours per week in order to do that. And the blogs are a really essential part of the course. The course is delivered through what's called blended learning, so it means that some of the learning is face-to-face in the classroom and some of the learning is online, and both halves of that are equally as important as each other. Your modules, there are 3 modules that you will do. So you do module 1 first of all just by itself. That's called Teaching, Learning and Assessment. It's 20 credits at level 7 at master's level, and it's a very, very practical skills-based module about helping you really build up an effective toolkit of being able to teach really effectively and more flexibly and in a variety of different contexts and think about your assessment. So in the first year, you start that in the January. You'll have 3 lots of 2-day intensives. You'll have one in the December or January, one in the Easter holidays, and one at the end of the summer term. And then you have the whole of the summer holiday to write your assignment, and the assignment is due in at the beginning of October in your first term. And there is, by the way, lots of support on writing your assignments, and we offer tutorial support, and we do work together on the blog, because I know for lots of people, you may never have written an essay for years, or hardly ever written an essay at all in lots of people's cases, and we know that and we understand that, and we're there to help you with that. So don't make that something that becomes a big fear. So you do that module just by itself from January to October in the first year, and then for the rest of the first year and all of the second year, you do 2 separate modules in parallel with each other. So you do module 2, which is called Linking Theory and Practice, and yes, we do look at more advanced theory in that module, but we always look at it from the point of view of how am I actually going to use this as a teacher. So it's always practical. We never look at theory just for the sake of theory, because I don't think that's particularly useful or relevant. And module 3 is that you conduct an action research project, and the focus is very much on the word action there. You look at one, and you get to choose one specific aspect of your teaching that you'd really like to try to improve. You research it to find out more about it, and then you do a couple of experiments to see whether you can really improve that particular aspect of your teaching. And a lot of people say they actually find that the most challenging but the most rewarding part of the course, because it's a real deep dive into your own development as a teacher. And as I say, we do that from the October of the first year through the rest of the first year and then through all of the second year. Now, I mentioned that you have intensives, so these always run for 2 consecutive days. They always start at 10 in the morning. We work from 10 till 1, we have lunch from 1 till 2, and then we work from 2 till 5, so you know when that is. We've found through experience that the best time to have these is in the holidays. It's very difficult to run them during term time, because obviously that would then get in the way of your teaching commitments, and that wouldn't be good. And we've found that it's best to do them in the weeks immediately before term starts or after term has ended, because people tend to still be around then. So we basically have them 4 times a year. We have them during the Christmas break, so either end of December, beginning of January. We have them in the Easter break. We have them right after the end of term 3, after the end of the summer term, and we have them then before the first term of the year starts in September, October, and then obviously you cycle back and you do the same dates again, Christmas, Easter, end of term 3 and before term 1, and obviously we give you all the dates for those. If you can't make a 2-day intensive in your own college, then what we ask you to do is look at all the dates, because they're always strung out over 3 or 4 weeks, and see whether you can go and attend the intensive in another college instead for that particular session. That always works really well. Sometimes people are away on tour or whatever and can't go at all. Again, we understand that. We try to be very flexible and supportive about that. And if you really can't make any of the intensives in any of the colleges for a given session, then we will catch you up with a tutorial and we will offer you one-to-one support. So again, that's absolutely fine. So the blogs, as I say, run during term time only, and they're a really important chance to process your learning. Those 2-day intensives aren't, called intensive by chance. They are really full on, okay? And nobody is expected to have actually kind of got and comprehended everything by the end of those 2 days. You can think of those 2 days really as an introduction, and then in the term that follows the 2 days, we go back over everything we've done in the 2 days and really process it. And most importantly, you get to apply it to your teaching. And I always think that the moment where I really learn something and really understand something is where I try to apply it to my own teaching, so then it's no longer just an idea, it's something that's very real to me. So really important chance to process your learning. And also, very importantly, we find they keep the group together between the intensives. The groups generally get really close with each other. You get very tightly bonded, and you need to be, because you need to be able to give each other feedback that's both really supportive but also very honest sometimes, and kind of in a very loving way, challenging sometimes. And I always say that the success or failure of the PG Cert for every group really depends on how well the group forms and how well the group operates. And I notice in well-operating groups, it raises the standard for absolutely everyone. You're not competing with each other as students on this course. You're collaborating with each other. So the blog is an important way of keeping the group going between intensives when you might not even see each other face-to-face, because, you could well be in college on completely different days. We generally, on the blog, alternate a reading week and a practical week. I know a lot of us find the reading a bit of a struggle, or it's like it's unfamiliar, or we haven't been used to reading kind of academic literature. And again, obviously, as tutors, we give you a lot of help and support with that. So I find it's a really good way to set a bit of reading and then get everyone on the blog to say what they thought about it, because that stops the reading being some private thing that we just struggle with by ourselves, and it makes it much more of a community effort. And then we'll alternate that with a practical week where you have a go at putting something into practice that we discussed in the 2 days, and we see what goes on. The third thing we use the blog for is that we also use them for people to draft their essays. We break each essay down into chunks. You write it week by week in some chunks, and then you get peer feedback. And only when you get given each other peer feedback and redrafted, then you can give it to your tutors, and your tutors will give you tutor feedback on it before it gets submitted. And again, we found that very good. The last term of the course, so effectively this winter term in the second year, between October and December, we only use the blog for this. So everybody gets to do full drafts of both of those final assignments on the blog, get peer feedback, get tutor feedback, and most people, even though it's not due until the beginning of January, obviously try to get it done before Christmas, because you don't really want to be doing it over the Christmas holidays, and find this process really good for helping them break it down, write the assignment over 10 weeks, get lots of feedback, and actually feel very confident when you submit it. There'll be no surprises because you've already had the feedback and you've already dealt with whatever needs dealing with. And so it's a really good supportive way of everyone helping each other do well in their assignments. Your biggest time commitment actually is your own teaching, and you're doing that anyway, so I hope that's reassuring. Your own teaching is absolutely central to the course. It's what you spend most time on. And in your assignments, you're always writing about your own teaching. You never write an essay which is just like, describe Vygotsky's theory of the zone of proximal development. We're not doing any of that nonsense. Everything you write is related to your own teaching and how you're trying to improve it and what's going on in your classrooms. So your own teaching, which in fancy PGCert education language is called the practicum. The practicum is really central to what you're doing. You will get observed every term while you're on the course by a PGCert tutor, or we have a couple of people who are special PGCert observers as well, and that's great. And again, it's one of the things that most people on the course say is absolutely the most valuable, is having someone come in who they can just be really honest with, who they don't feel judged by, who they don't feel they've got to perform in front of. Nothing from your PGCert observation goes on your file for college management. It's not part of your staff records. It's purely private between you and the PGCert team, and these things are designed to be very developmental and very, very supportive. There's no grading. You don't have to, as it were, pass the observations to pass the PGCert. The PGCert is assessed just on your assignments and a little portfolio of evidence of what you've been doing. So they're genuinely there to help you, and I say people really, really find them helpful. An individual element you get is that everybody has an entitlement over the 2 years to 8 hours of individual tutorial support, and various tutors offer this, and you can decide who you want to work with depending on their availability. Obviously, the core team, we're based in Brighton. I do the vast majority of my tutorials online, so using something like Skype or FaceTime or Zoom, and I find that works really, really well. I also live overseas for a large part of the year, so all of the tutorials will be online, and that works great. And in terms of chunking up your 8 hours, you can always choose whether you want to have for a specific tutorial, whether you want it to be 30 minutes or whether you want it to be an hour. We don't do the standard BIM 20-minute tutorials because I just don't think that's long enough to get done what we need to get done in a PG Cert context. In terms of how you're going to be assessed with your essays over the course of the year, the 2 years, well, there's 3 assignments. So the first one comes in the October of year 1, the first day of the October term actually, and that's the PGO one, which is on teaching, learning and assessment, and it's 4,000 words, and actually it's broken down into 3 separate sections. All of the assignments are broken down into separate sections, because actually in my experience I find that makes it much easier for people to manage, because instead of thinking, oh blimey, I've got to write 4,000 words, you think, right, I've got to write 750 words on this, and then people can really focus. And as I say, you will have been through a process of getting peer feedback and getting tutor feedback, so there's loads and loads of support for you around this. And then at the end of the course, you put in 2 assignments on the same day. That's why we spend the whole of the last term working on this, because obviously you need to manage your time a bit around this. So the linking theory and assessment, which is PGO2, there's a 4,000 word assignment, also broken down into 3 chunks. And then for PGO3, which is your action research project, there's a 6,000 word assignment broken down into 2 chunks, a report on your project, and there's a particular structure you use for that, so in fact that effectively is broken into subsections as well, and then a reflection where you step back from the project and say, well, what have I learned from doing this, and how has this developed me as a professional? We're often asked what qualifications you need to get on. Now the answers for this are completely different for staff groups and graduate groups. For staff groups, if you're employed by BIM and you're offered a place on the PG Cert, that is the qualification you need to get on. There's always a mixture every year on the PG Cert. People who've got degrees, sometimes people who've already got full master's degrees already or even doctorates already, and people who haven't been to university and haven't got a degree. And I've had people who left school at 15 and haven't got any formal academic qualifications whatsoever. So the deal with the University of Sussex is that you're admitted on the basis of your professional experience, and if you're employed by BIM, that is seen as the measure of your professional experience. If you have a degree, that's grand, but if you don't have a degree, it really isn't necessary. And even people with degrees, quite often, they've done it quite a long time ago, or it was in a completely different sort of subject, and we will spend lots of time really helping you deal with the reading and deal with the writing. So if you don't have a degree, please don't think that in any way that's a problem. I don't, to be honest, when people finally graduate from the course, I don't see any evidence that whether people had a degree or not at the beginning has really any impact on how they do over the 2 years of the PG Cert, so that's absolutely fine. You also need to know that the PG Cert team, we are not involved in selecting in any way who comes on the staff course. We are with the graduate students, but we're not with the staff. So it's entirely up to each college management team who gets offered a place. And I always think, actually, if you're offered a place, it's a compliment. You don't have to pay for this, and you're getting roughly £10,000 worth of free education, which of course is another reason why the colleges do expect people who sign up for the course to commit to it and put the effort into it, because they're funding you to a heavy degree. And I have to say personally, I think that's absolutely fair enough. So it's up to the colleges, and again, sometimes people decide that if they're going off touring, they want to intermit for a year in the middle, you can do that and then rejoin it, or they need to defer for some reason. I'm always happy to support that, but that has to be agreed by your college management team. I can't give you permission for that. That's got to be agreed by your college. So looking forward, if you're interested in doing the PG Cert, and it may be that you've already been approached or you haven't been approached and you're interested, then in the light of the last thing I said, you need to discuss doing it with your college management team. Different colleges seem to do it in slightly different ways from what I can see, but a good first contact would always be the head of education. And if they don't deal with it directly, and maybe it's the principal, then obviously they'll pass you on. But I would go and chat with your head of education first. And basically, if they support you and send us the list of names, then you're in. We try to ensure that each group is between 6 and 12 participants. That's our ideal. We don't like going above 12, purely because, as I said earlier on, it's really important that the group functions really well. And much larger than 12, you don't really get that closeness within the group that I think you need. Now, having said that, if they support you and you're on the list you're in, that is true. Don't worry, you will still get sent an application form. And it's not that we're then going to read that form and reject people. It's just that in order to get you into the system properly at BIM and then make sure that you get registered as a student and you get your Moodle access as a student and you get access to the Sussex University e-library, we actually have to enrol you properly. And in order to enrol you properly, we're going to have to get everybody just to fill out a very light application form. So don't panic when you get that. It's a bit of a formality, to be honest, but it does need to be done. So I hope that's helpful, and it's told you everything you need to know about the PGCert. It's probably told you way more about the PGCert than you ever had any interest in knowing whatsoever. But if there are things that you're still not certain about, then in the first instance, please email your queries to Chris Jones, and that's just Chris Jones, all as one word, CHRISJONES, Chris Jones at bim.co.uk. And I look forward to working with you and meeting you soon. Take care. Bye.